Welcome to Black Fire Chronicles, where history's untold stories and deep conflicts come to life. If you're into powerful narratives, historical struggles, and the intense clashes between black and white communities, make sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Black Fire Chronicles, where the fire never dies.
The Stolen City. Wilmington, 1898. Wilmington, North Carolina, in 1898, was a city brimming with a rare and remarkable vitality. A black majority population thriving in commerce, industry, and politics. A beacon of biracial cooperation had emerged, fueled by the fusionist movement, a coalition of black Republicans and white populists who together held power and sought to create a more equitable society. But this harmonious vision was a direct threat to the white supremacist ideology that had dominated the South for generations. What unfolded in Wilmington that November was not just a riot, but a carefully orchestrated coup d'etat, a brutal and calculated act of racial terrorism designed to overthrow the legally elected government and reinstate white supremacy. This is the story of the Stolen City, a narrative that delves into the lives and hopes of Wilmington's residents, explores the rising tide of white supremacy, and recounts the tragic events of November 1898, a watershed moment in American history that continues to resonate today. Part 1. A City of Promise, Wilmington's biracial experiment. To understand the magnitude of the loss in Wilmington, one must first understand the unprecedented level of black achievement and political power that existed in the city before the massacre. Chapter 1. The Port City's Progress. Wilmington, a bustling port city located at the mouth of the Cape Fear River, was the largest city in North Carolina in the late 19th century. Its economy was driven by trade, shipping, and manufacturing, attracting a diverse population of merchants, laborers, and entrepreneurs. The city also had a substantial black middle class, made up of skilled craftsmen, business owners, and professionals. Black residents owned thriving businesses, including grocery stores, restaurants, barbershops, and funeral homes. The presence of a thriving black community created a vibrant cultural scene, with black churches, schools, and social organizations playing a vital role in the life of the city. Chapter 2. The Fusionist Coalition. A new political order. The political landscape of North Carolina was undergoing a significant shift in the late 19th century, as the populist movement gained traction among poor white farmers who were dissatisfied with the Democratic Party's policies. The populists, seeking to challenge the power of the wealthy elite, found common ground with black Republicans who were seeking to protect their civil rights and to gain political representation. Together, they formed the Fusionist Coalition, a powerful political force that challenged the dominance of the Democratic Party in North Carolina. The Fusionists advocated for policies that would benefit working-class people, both black and white, including public education, railroad regulation, and voting rights. The Fusionist Coalition achieved remarkable success, winning control of the state legislature in 1894 and electing a Republican governor, Daniel Russell, in 1896. Chapter 3. Black Political Empowerment. The Fusionist victory led to a significant increase in black political power in North Carolina. Black men were elected to the state legislature, to county offices, and to municipal positions. In Wilmington, black residents held key positions in the city government, including aldermen, police officers, and school board members. Black men also served on the city's police force, maintaining law and order. The black community's political power was a source of pride and empowerment, allowing them to advocate for their interests and to protect their civil rights. It also drew the ire of the white supremacist elements. Part 2. The Rising Tide of White Supremacy, a campaign of fear and hatred. The success of the Fusionist Coalition and the rise of black political power in North Carolina sparked a backlash from white supremacists who were determined to restore the old order and to disenfranchise black voters. Chapter 4. The White Man's Campaign. The Democratic Party, seeking to regain power, launched a concerted campaign to appeal to white voters. Their strategy involved promoting a message of racial supremacy and stoking fears of black domination. The Democrats accused the Fusionists of betraying the white race and of threatening the social order. They used inflammatory rhetoric and propaganda to demonize black residents, portraying them as lazy, incompetent, and dangerous. The white supremacist campaign was particularly effective in exploiting anxieties about black political power, particularly the presence of black men in positions of authority over white men. Chapter 5. The Wilmington Messenger and the Incendiary Editorial. The Wilmington Messenger, a local newspaper, played a key role in promoting the white supremacist agenda. The newspaper published editorials that inflamed racial tensions. One particularly incendiary editorial, written by editor Alexander Manley, challenged the notion of white women being particularly pure. Manley argued that some white women were in relationships with black men, and their condemnation of his race was hypocrisy. This editorial was taken up by white supremacist media and leaders as a justification for racial violence. Manley's words served as a catalyst, galvanizing support for the white supremacist cause and fueling the mob mentality that would lead to the massacre. Chapter 6. The Red Shirts. Violence and Intimidation. The Red Shirts, a paramilitary group associated with the Democratic Party, used violence and intimidation to suppress black voters. The men were dedicated to eliminating black voices. They disrupted political rallies, attacked black communities, and intimidated black voters. The Red Shirts' activities created a climate of fear and violence. Part 3. The plan unfolds. A carefully orchestrated coup. The white supremacist campaign in Wilmington was not just a spontaneous eruption of violence, but rather a carefully orchestrated plan to overthrow the legally elected government and to reinstate white rule. Chapter 7. The Secret Oath. A group of prominent white citizens in Wilmington, including business leaders, politicians, and law enforcement officials, formed a secret organization known as the Secret Nine. These figures created and enforced the plan for violence. They had planned to meet after. Chapter 8. The Wilmington Declaration of White Independence. The White Government Union, a group of prominent white citizens, drafted a document known as the Wilmington Declaration of White Independence, which declared that white men would no longer be ruled by black men, and that black residents must be stripped of their political power. The Wilmington Declaration, which was drafted in secret, was a blueprint for a coup d'etat, outlining the steps that would be taken to overthrow the fusionist government and to restore white supremacy. Chapter 9. The Signal Fires. The Wilmington Declaration was not just a statement of principles. It was a call to action. White residents prepared to carry out the coup. The date had been decided. Weapons were stockpiled and plans were put in place to seize control of the city. Part 4. The Day of Reckoning. November 10th, 1898. November 10th, 1898 marked a day of unprecedented violence and lawlessness in Wilmington, forever etching itself into the city's memory as a day of shame and horror. Chapter 10. The Messenger's Demise. The coup began with the destruction of the Wilmington Messenger, the black-owned newspaper that had published Alexander Manly's editorial. A mob of white men, armed with guns and torches, stormed the newspaper office, setting it ablaze. The newspaper was not just a building. It was a symbol of black empowerment and a platform for black voices. Its destruction signaled the beginning of the end for the biracial experiment in Wilmington. Chapter 11. The Forced Resignation. The mob then marched to City Hall, demanding the resignation of the fusionist mayor, Silas P. Wright, and the black aldermen. Wright, fearing for his life and the safety of the city, reluctantly agreed to resign. The forced resignation of the legally elected government was a clear act of treason, a blatant disregard for the principles of democracy. Alfred Moore Waddell, a prominent white supremacist, was installed as the new mayor, ushering in a new era of white rule in Wilmington. Chapter 12. The massacre begins with the government overthrown and the city under their control. The white mob turned its attention to the black community. They roamed the streets, chases, targeting black residents and killing anyone who resisted. Black men were hunted down like animals, shot in the streets, dragged from their homes, and lynched from trees. Black women were subjected to sexual assault. Black children were terrorized. The violence was particularly brutal and senseless. Black residents who had achieved success and prominence were targeted specifically. Their homes and businesses looted and destroyed. The death toll is estimated to be between 60 and 300. The exact number may never be known. Part 5. Flight and Erasure, the Legacy of Loss. The Wilmington Massacre was not only a tragedy for those who lost their lives, but also a devastating blow to the black community, forcing thousands of residents to flee the city and creating a legacy of fear and silence. Chapter 13. The Escape. As the violence escalated, black residents desperately tried to escape Wilmington. Many fled into the surrounding swamps and forests, seeking refuge from the mob. Some were fortunate enough to find shelter with sympathetic white families who risked their own safety to provide aid. Others were able to escape by sea, boarding ships that carried them to other cities along the coast. The escape from Wilmington was a harrowing experience, filled with fear, uncertainty, and the constant threat of violence. Chapter 14. The Burning of Brooklyn. The mob targeted Brooklyn. They burned the area to the ground. The burning of Brooklyn was not just a physical act of destruction. It was also a symbolic act, representing the erasure of black history and the denial of black agency. Chapter 15, The Wall of Silence. In the aftermath of the massacre, a wall of silence descended upon Wilmington. White residents, fearing legal repercussions and social condemnation, refused to discuss the events that had taken place. The silence was strategic. The black community, traumatized by the violence and fearful of retaliation, also remained silent. Their voices were hushed. The story of the Wilmington Massacre was effectively erased from the history books, replaced by a sanitized version of events. Part 6. The seeds of memory. Reclaiming the narrative. Despite the efforts to erase the memory of the Wilmington Massacre, the story lived on in the hearts and minds of the survivors and their descendants. Chapter 16. Whispers of Truth. The story was passed down. It was shared from families to families. The stories, often told in hushed tones and shrouded in secrecy, provided a link to the past and a reminder of the injustices that had been suffered. Chapter 17. The Quest for Remembrance. In recent decades, a new generation of historians, activists, and descendants of the victims has emerged, determined to uncover the truth about the Wilmington Massacre and to bring it to the forefront of public consciousness. These individuals have conducted extensive research. They have gathered oral histories. They have fought for the creation of memorials and educational programs. Their efforts have helped to break the wall of silence. Chapter 18. The Power of Memory. The story of the Wilmington Massacre serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of democracy. It serves as the reminder of racism. It serves as the need to have a vigilance in the face of injustice. The memory of the victims calls for us to create a world where such tragedies will never happen again. Part 7. Unveiling the Messengers, a New Generation. Almost a century after the tragedy, a new movement was built. New activists dedicated themselves to understanding the events. Chapter 19. Finding the Records. A new young reporter arrived in Wilmington. He wanted to find the truth. He dug through archives. He sought out family members. As the young man found his way into the story, the deeper story started to build. Chapter 20. Speaking Truth. Once his story came to light, the local community of color were filled with the spirit of rebellion. They wanted to start the movement up again. They spoke to the churches, they made connections, and slowly a movement was born. Chapter 21. A Changed City. The new story began to help heal the damage. There were so many wounds. The old systems started to crumble. There was new energy. As the word spread, there was hope for the future. Part 8. The Circle Closes. Today and tomorrow, the events of November 1898 continue to resonate with people. The world had changed so much, but much still needed to be addressed. Chapter 22. A memorial arises. A movement begins and grows in Wilmington. They were able to get a marker placed for the event. They also created a community resource center in the location. The community thrived, giving the people a voice. Chapter 23. The Ongoing Story. The tale of the Wilmington Massacre continues to unfold. It serves to remind every person about the need for action. It teaches lessons. Chapter 24. Looking Forward. It's a tale of memory and progress. The world is still changing, but every town must remember the past. It's an important element for the future. Epilogue. The river still flows. The river still flows. And now the souls are able to fly free. They all carry the past.
Thank you for watching until the end. I hope Black Fire Chronicles has given you a deeper and more powerful perspective on history. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next story. See you in the next video, where history's fire keeps burning. Black Fire Chronicles, where the fire never dies.